All right. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. And of course, thank you, Dr. Mathew. It's absolutely a pleasure to be here with you. And I almost feel like this session was kind of cherry-picked for me. Given, of course, a common faith that I share with the Tata family, which is the Zoroastrian faith. Parsis, right? And this is not maybe the first question that I wanted to take, but because we're talking about faith, maybe I'll just start with that and get straight into it. If we are talking about faith and Mr. Tata's faith, was he faithful? Was he faithful to the Zoroastrian faith? What did you talk about? Did you talk about faith with him?
Thank you, Delshad. That's a very interesting question. Let me start by saying I'm extremely happy to be here with all of you. And I will deem it a privilege to share with you the enigmatic Mr. Ratan Tata. As you know, he's a very reticent man. He was a very reticent man, never spoke about himself, never spoke about his achievements. Whenever you praised him, he would bite his lips. And if you praised him more, he would go cherubic. That is Mr. Tata. Now, Delshad asked me a question. Was he faithful?
His faith. How did he feel about his faith? How did he feel about being a Zoroastrian, a Parsi?
Now, let me tell you something. Faith for him, according to me, was not religion. Faith for him was a concept. Now, what is that concept? What does it mean? You tell him, sir, why don't you wear a Parsi topi like Jamshedji did? He said, Thomas, why do I need external manifestation? I think that was the most loaded statement. I do not know if Delshad is the true Parsi, but Parsis, if you look at the religion, it is like no other religion. In fact, Mr. Ratan Tata's father was adopted from an orphanage because Lady Navjabai Tata did not have an heir. Because, and why a heir? Because if you're a Christian or a Hindu, you would like to have somebody who will inherit your property and you call yourself, call a son. As far as Parsis are concerned, I'm not sure if she knows about it. There is a ceremony called the Uthamnu ceremony.
Yes.
In the Uthamnu ceremony, on the third day of the death of the Parsi, when the ruin of the soul comes out, they say that the priest along with the son will stand and request for alms for philanthropy in the name of the deceased. I don't think in any other religion you have it. So a heir is extraordinarily important in order to fulfill the philanthropic vision of the family. And it is quite interesting. The Parsi religion means you can make wealth, but you have to make it the right way, number one. And two, the wealth has to be used for the society, for the welfare of the society. From there comes this trusteeship concept, which Jamshedji, as you know, was a priest in Noviet. He always had a topi, Parsi topi, if you know. And whatever he did, according to me, had an underpinning of religious edict in it. Like, Mahatma Gandhi said about Parsis, because of the amount that of their wealth which they gave back to society, he said, in numbers, they are beneath contempt. But when it comes to contribution beyond compare.
Yes, true.
Now, what does it mean? So, to me, to my understanding is this, the entire Tata philosophy is built on this grid, that we will hold the wealth of the society in trusteeship and give back to society For instance, not too many people know that 66% of Tata Sons is owned by Tata Trust.
Yes, yes.
And Tata Trust constitute the wealth of the Tata family. And that is to be used 100% for philanthropy and for nothing else.
And that,
No diamonds on the neck, no planes to be gifted on birthdays, nothing of that sort.
absolutely, and I think it's summed up in our teachings, which is actually just a few words, which is good thoughts, good words, good deeds. And that pretty much sums up a lot of the industrialists, the great Parsis that we've had. But let me come to the very beginning, Dr. Mathew. You start the book by getting into Mr. Tata's childhood. That it also has a very meticulously researched family tree in there. But speaking about his childhood and the complexities of the Tata family, how did that early childhood, perhaps some of that loneliness and the complexities of the family itself, shape Mr. Tata's leadership style and his personal values?
See, let me start with the family tree. I think that's been my greatest discovery in this book. Because when Tata took over R&T, we refer to him as R&T, took over as Chairman Tata Sons, March 25, 1991. People said that he's a greenhorn, he's not a real Tata. Okay. Now, R&T's father, called Neville Tata, had struggled to trace his lineage. He went to Tata archives and asked the archivist, you give me all the details that you have. So, in his own handwriting, he tried to make a tree and wrote certain names of the members of the family. And he said, my grandfather is the second cousin of Jamshedji, and stopped. He could not go any further. So I went to Mr. Narla, archivist, okay? And I told Mr. Tata, I said, sir, I knew for the last 30 years, great soul, amazing man. He's so polite that even a compulsive talker like her will be tolerated by him, and also me. And he's so polite that he will not ask you to shut up. Anybody else will ask you to shut up, but he will not. So I said, sir, I'm going to go trace your tree. So he said, what is that going to do? I said, sir, there is a concept of blue blood, like for instance, even in US, George W. Bush's mother was supposed to be 330 or in the list to be the king or queen of England. So, blue blood. So he said, what, Thomas, what blood are we talking about? I said, your father tried. He said, no, he was fastidious about these things. So I said, yeah, let's, take a chance. So we went to Navsari. You know where Navsari is, I suppose. That's where they are supposed to have originally landed. And the Parsi priests are tough people to crack, okay, for the fire temple, honestly speaking. So first time we went, they said, no, we don't have any of these records. Because, Parsis, they have these records of Tatas. Tatas are supposed to be priest. And, the surname Tatas means, you know what it means actually? They say Tatas means hot-headed. Yes. That is also written by a Britisher, okay, when you go back into the terminology. So we went, I said, Your Holiness, please, would you like to share these records? He says, no, I'm not going to share, I don't have any. So after about 15, 16 trips, then he said, I'm not even going to see you. And he says, Cyrus tried, Neville tried, and you're not even a Parsi, why will I give it to you? And he said, don't come here anymore. So I said, this is too difficult a priest to handle. So I went back, got his number from a junior priest, and sent him a long WhatsApp message. I said, Most Honorable Holiness. I said, in this world today, there is only one Parsi whose name is known throughout the world. That is Mr. Ratan Tata. Now, if you are the custodian of the information of the family tree of Mr. Ratan Tata, does it not behoove you to give me that information so that we can make the history of this greatest man who is a Parsi, known all over the world, and cement his history, the keys of which only you have. And I believe, most humbly, it's your sanguine duty.
It worked. It worked.
Somewhere there was a light which entered his intransigent mind. So he said, you come. Then what did he do? He pulled out some documents starting from 10th or 11th century, all in Gujarati.
Wow.
In Gujarati, I can hardly read Hindi. No, that's a hyperbolic statement. But Gujarati means what? So then I went back to the junior priest and I said, Chalo, please help me out. Caught about 3-4 of the junior priests, took them to this man and translated all what was written in Gujarati, made a tree, which is there in the book, made a tree, went to the computer shop and got it sealed and authenticated and signed as the original records kept with them. Otherwise, according to me, the books are so old, maybe 10, 15 years, there'll be no book there
Disintegrate, absolutely.
It'll disintegrate. So he has sealed and signed it. And according to this, there is a forefather called Bika Tata, whose one son is the ancestor of Jamshedji, and another that of Neville Tata.
And
that's what is, and I thought that was a great discovery, I found it very fascinating. And then in the book I have written one sentence. I said that makes Mr. Ratan Tata the only chairman to be directly related to the founder. By blood and by association, that is through his wife. Mirabai.
It's absolutely amazing that we have this now, and so it's not in Gujarati for the rest of us, so we can easily sort of handle the family tree. But back to my question, if you could, before I move on to the second one, I want to quickly just get, how did that complexity of his early life, his childhood, his of course his father, as you said, was adopted, how did that impact his personal values and his leadership style?
See, if you talk about R&T, you'll have to spend at least about 1 week.
But if you could sum it up for
us. I can only tell you small staccato points, make only small staccato points. Father was adopted from an orphanage, became the only son of Lady Navjubai Tata, moved into Tata House, which is supposed to be one of the most beautiful buildings
palace
in the country at that time. And he lived a life of a prince with 40 help to look after all your needs. And a house which is so splendid that even hosted people like Rabindranath Tagore. At the same time, I had a chapter called Tumult in Splendor. Some of his family members got very upset with that. I said, it is because his mother walked out on the family, when he was about 6, 7 years. And then everything broke close. He was very close to his mother. And when, I'm talking about 1940s, mid-40s. Even today, when your wife walks out on a man, the man is distraught. Because it hits his ego. It hurts a man's ego more than it may hit a lady's vanity, in that sense of the term. Honestly. So father became distraught. He lost his equanimity, as a result of which R&T like Jimmy became orphans, virtually orphans. That's when his grandmother took over both the children and took them under her wings, and particularly R&T.
He was very close to her.
I had some lovely photographs of Lady Navjubai Tata from a painting, but there is no provision outside I showed.
And she was a formidable woman herself.
Oh, she was completely formidable, very ethical, principled, and not afraid to say sorry when you make a mistake. That happens only after we have reached a much higher level.
Yes.
At a much higher. She used to even apologize to her grandson and say, Ratan, I'm sorry, I made a mistake, and slip it under the door. That was that lady. But what happened? R&T became very insecure. he became so insecure and clingy, he started tagging along with his father even when he went for his parties. So Sunday lunch he used to host in Alibag. So Jimmy and him, they used to accompany him even for the party. It only meant that he was trying to fulfill a desire to be close to the father, fearing that he may also walk away. So you can imagine the trauma. And he was quite upset about the whole situation. Even as late as maybe 2020, whenever he spoke about his childhood, he became very remorseful. He thought that he had to face a rough deal because of his mother's separation. You know, in school, he said he was outclassed and singled out. Even today, you know, there are more divorces than marriages, I guess, today. But even then, if it happens, some of your classmates will make fun of you. Especially if your mother or father walk out and then go and live with somebody. You know, it becomes a matter of ridicule.
And far worse back then. And
therefore,
they were children.
And he says he was humiliated. And he hated his school. And he had no friends. That's how we lived. But a man of great courage, determination, finally he overcame all these struggles, challenges in life.
Let me ask you this, and this is not in the questions I shared with you, but given the examples that he had in his life of relationships and the unique relationships that he himself had, whether it was with Lady Tata, who was, of course, a great influence on him, and I'll ask you on that question, which is, that she was a very principled woman and stuck by it no matter what, and he had that, but she also said sorry when she was wrong. And I wanted to also ask you that did RNT also inherit that trait? But before I go there, I want to ask you quickly if you could tell me, Dr. Mathew, how did the relationships that he saw all around him and in his family affect his relationships as he grew up, as he went into becoming a teenager, and then 20s, 30s, all the way through to the end of his life?
See, very complex situation. At one point of time, I mustered the courage to ask him. I said, sir, it is true that all the children of your mother are unmarried. 4 children. Auntie, Jimmy, and the 2 daughters from the second marriage. I asked him, does it have to do with the separation of your mother from the family first? He was taken aback by the question, and he's a very smart guy. He said, Thomas, I need to think about it to give you an answer. I did not ask him a second time. I have hinted in the book, his insecurity in his childhood may have played a very strong part in him living a bachelor. He had 4 serious relationships. The first one, he says he wanted to get married to. The second one also, he says the same. Third also is the same. Fourth also is the same. But according to me, when they take another step, I think he took 2 steps backward. He didn't have the courage to walk the last mile. Anybody would do the same, I guess, because it had burned his soul. And he passed through very, very difficult times as a child. And did it affect his political life? Did it affect his business life? His principles? Answer is a big no. He did not let that happen. On the other hand, if he believed you, he would be so forthcoming that you will at times ask him, sir, these are things you need not divulge to anybody. So that's the kind of man he was.
There have, of course, been several, we're talking about his, the industrialist persona of RNT, and there were, great highs, and of course there were great lows as well. among them were, of course, the Nano, or the moments after his retirement and his succession, and the episodes with Mr. Mistry. So tell me, in all your conversations with him, Dr. Mathew, what were some of the regrets that he had, or things that he felt that he needed to maybe say sorry for? Because we go back to Lady Tata, and a very principled woman, so R&T naturally, inherited some of that. Did he also inherit the other trait of accepting his mistakes, accepting and saying sorry?
See, Delshad, you have asked so many questions. It's like a multi-headed Hydra question, So many questions. I don't know which to deal with. Now, probably in the question answer session I will deal with. Now, whether it's Cyrus Mistry you want me to talk about, or
not a specific incident, but in totality, all those moments, did he have what did he have regrets about? Maybe you can start with with Cyrus Mistry.
Okay, no, let me start with Nano. She asked with Nano. Now, I do not agree with any conclusion that Nano was a failure. You have to go much deeper to understand why I'm making this statement. Why did R&T start the Nano? R&T could have started probably a factory which produces Lamborghini, Maserati, Cadillac, Audi, or anything. When I interviewed Henry Kissinger told me R&T is not a man who does business to make money. He says he looks at a social cause that remains unfulfilled, makes a business proposition out of it, and would fulfill that social goal. Nano is the best example. He wanted to provide safe travel for middle class and lower middle class. Therefore, he hit upon the idea of Nano. Now, does Nano deserve to be criticized as a failure? The answer is no. Why? Nano as a concept flourished. I will ask you a question. Let me answer your question with a question. Did the Wright brothers ever produce aircraft? No. So what happened to Nano? These are not my words. Nano ushered in what is called a nano revolution. A revolution throughout the world. There is this director called Gough Waddell of Advanced Mobility Research in the Center for Design in Pasadena, one of the topmost design institutes in the world. He says R&T's concept of nano brought in what is called a nano effect, a nano revolution. The concept got the attention of all the major car makers. And they started accepting what is called frugal engineering as a concept. It did not only affect automobile manufacturing, it also affected GE, which went into the concept of frugal engineering and developed so many equipment at less cost. Okay. 2, there is Cooper Hewitt Design Museum in Smithsonian Institute. Okay. Now, so, Smithsonian means it is at the apex. The director called Cara McCarthy says, the design was so powerful that we had a design of the same size of the car exhibited in our institute because it was a breakthrough design. And this also led to a complete change in the way people looked at cars and how cheap they are. I'll give you one example. Renault Nissan started producing what's called the Logan car in Eastern Europe, adopting the same technology as R&T did. And they started producing about 6,000 Logans every year with a higher profit margin than any of their cars. So as a concept, was it successful? Yes. As a technology revolution? Yes. As a provider of a safe transport? for the segment R&T wanted? Yes. How does it make a difference if Tata's made it or Logan was made by Renault Nissan? So that is how you have to look at the concept. You have to understand, have you brought in a revolution? Has it made a change
vision
in the world? Has it changed people's life? It has.
Yeah.
Even today, the small cars, in fact, even Tata has also benefited enormously. The small cars, the Tiger, all these cars have developed from this technology. The skin of the cars are now much thinner, and that comes from Nano. So, in my book, I have said, you know what? The chapter is called Anything But Nano. That is it.
And we're seeing that frugality in innovation, in engineering, even today in our space missions, for instance. Absolutely. Now address the second part, which is the Cyrus Mistry episode for us.
See, the basic problem with R&T has been that he never came out openly. That's because he's a very reticent man. He doesn't speak much. He wants somebody else to articulate for him. And as I told you earlier, you say anything in praise of him. Now, what happened in Cyrus Mistry case? Let me put it in very clear terms to you. Please understand, there is a fundamental reason why R&T had to move it. Number one. But R&T says, I made a mistake in not being in the selection committee, which finally recommended Cyrus Mistry for the post of Chairman Tata Sons. He says, that was a mistake on my part. I thought that I should stay away so that people would feel comfortable that all the people in the interview board would be equals, and therefore it would be a unanimous decision. On the other hand, if I would have been there, people would have said, R&T made the choice. I wanted people to be happy. But then he said it was a utopian decision. Please understand, R&T held Cyrus Mistry. And in fact, R&T was responsible for having Cyrus Mistry appointed as a director in Tata Sons. Although Cyrus Mistry's father wanted his other brother, Cyrus Mistry's other son, to be appointed. But R&T said, no, I will appoint only Cyrus Mistry because he thought he had great education. Now what happened? I'm not trying to say Cyrus Mistry is a bad man. I knew him personally. The point is that the man did not have the experience enough to run a salt to steel to software conglomerate. Please understand, R&T from 1962 to 1991 cut his purse. One fine morning, you cannot be appointed as chairman, like I'm an IAS officer, or let's say she's tomorrow appointed as chairperson, Indian Animal Husbandry. Is it possible? No. Cyrus Mistry did not have the experience of having run even one company. Very smart man. But if you would have probably had the benefit of having run maybe 1, 2, or 3, like Mr. Chandra said, then probably the scene would have been different. Now, under Cyrus Mistry, the performance of Tata Sons and his companies slipped. That upset R&T. Now, why should it upset R&T? Please understand, he is the chairman of Tata Trust. Tata Trust gets its funds from the dividends which Tata Sons get. Okay? And Tata Sons dividend can only come if Tata companies perform. So therefore, if the companies don't perform, the tap which flows into the philanthropic activities of Tata Trust will dry up. He says, Thomas, I have a fiduciary relationship to step in. Otherwise, what will happen to the schemes meant for the poor and to fulfill social cause? Number one. Then there is another aspect which is less known, not well articulated. You know, R&T was a man of great ethical moorings, and he would not do anything to step away from that, whatever may be the cost. So as early as in 1998, he started what's called the Tata Code of Conduct. Tata Code of Conduct, he started and made it compulsory for every Tata company and Tata employee to sign it. Please understand, in 1998, when he started it, when he initiated the concept Tata Code of Conduct, even companies like KPMG, which is supposed to be an audit company, did not even have this concept. So he was far ahead. Now, when you have Tata Code of Conduct, please understand one thing. The chairman of Tata Sons would have to lead by example. Yes. Now, what happened here, let me tell you. It is not Cyrus Mistry's fault. But Shapoorji Pallonji is a contract, is a company which gets into contracts, company which does a lot of buildings, etc. For many, many years, most of the, I wouldn't say most, a lot of the projects of Tata Steel, Tata Motors were done by Shapoorji Pallonji Group, okay? Now, after Cyrus Mistry becomes a chairperson, it does not behove the chairperson to be connected with a company which gets large amounts of contract from Tata Sons. If you are in the Indian Administrative Service, you will get suspended and asked to go home. I don't know if in CNBC they would do that, but I'll just give you an example. Just giving an example. For the 16 months from 2012 to 2013, after he took over as deputy chairman, when R&T was there, Shapoorji Pallonji got about 1,361 crores during that phase itself. And that was about 48% more than the monthly average. Now, let's put it like this to you. Okay. I'm the chairperson of Tata Sons. She is the chairman of Tata Steel. There's a contract to build a new factory unit. Shapoorji Pallonji, that's my company, is also participating in it. Would it be fair on her? No. So the problem is that whether Cyrus Mistry asked the company directors or the man in charge of contracts, the company started getting more contracts. So R&T wrote to him and said, when you were appointed, I had instructed that you would create a Chinese wall between you and your group, and that you will have no interest. And that is a condition on which I recommended your approval to the board. Even after 3 years, that was not done. Yeah. And R&T in his own hand wrote to him 3-4 times. And then he asked me a question. He says, Thomas, how can I hold a poor supervisor in Tata Steel responsible when the chairman himself cannot be held responsible? He said, look at the quandary. What do I do? Do I step in or stay back? He says, I have only one interest. I have no children to hand over this company to or this conglomerate to. I owe my responsibility to my forefathers who have entrusted the future chairman of Tata Trust to keep the amounts which they have saved for future generations and for society. And if I am not able to do it, then I'm failing in my duty. That was, and believe me, as I say it, and I've said it on many occasions, removal of Cyrus Mistry hurt Mr. Tata more than Mr. Cyrus Mistry. It virtually burned him. It hurt him so much. It affected him internally. And you know why? He kept on saying, Thomas, this was his regret. I had to open the door for him in the non-Tata way. If you know what I mean. He went to him and said, please accept via media and say that you're stepping down for personal reasons. But he didn't. While at the same time, you need to understand, a chairman of any company will have to walk out if the majority shareholder says, I don't want you. Please, even person like Steve Jobs, who was a founder of the company, was asked to go home in 1985 by the board. So therefore, you have no complaint. If you're, it's like saying, if you're employed and if your shareholders, majority says, I have no confidence in you, you have to walk away.
Absolutely. And I think it goes back also to something that I think he used to say, which is, in the vein of the right thing may not always be the easy thing to do. So it was always...
He never took the easy path.
Yes, it was the right...
Hurt.
Yes.
Was hurt by it.
Yes, absolutely. But let me just switch tracks a little bit now and ask you a little bit about your experience of researching the book, intense research, years of work. You invested a lot of time, effort, and money into it as well. This enormous public image of Ratan Tata, and he was reticent, as you mentioned, and I know that maybe he didn't like the headlines about him all the time. But how did you reconcile that with, the moments when he perhaps was a little bit more vulnerable, and how did you reconcile the two?
See, I don't know. Let me put it like this to you. I could not find any strong negative in that man. I knew him for 30 years. He gave me about 130, 40 hours of recorded interview in which there is nothing he held back. He told me A to Z about his girlfriends, and the last one, he said, Thomas, she was half my age, but I was besotted by her. One fine morning, we were supposed to go for breakfast, and I found that she had ran back to her first boyfriend, and I was heartbroken. Even to that extent, he told me. And he said, finally, thank God I didn't marry her, because she's the one who wants to have holidays in Monaco and France. He says, that's not something I would have enjoyed. So he told me everything. And there's nothing he
What
actually
holidays
held back.
did he enjoy?
No, what holidays did poor man enjoy? I don't know if he enjoyed any holidays for that matter. In fact, I do some serious photography. I was planning to take him to Tadoba. Okay? You know that tiger reserve? Okay. Last about 2000, but then, he was too frail and we were planning. So I told him, sir, there will be a great day when you go to Tadoba. He said, why, Thomas? I said, sir, a lot of tigers will come to see you. You don't have to look for tigers, I said. He said, there is a new tiger in town. So he kept laughing. He said, what all do you keep saying? What holidays did he take? I don't know of any holidays that he took. In fact, the last holiday he was forced to take is to Goa, and where he came back almost lifeless, I don't think any holidays as such he enjoyed. Where Monaco? Where? No, I don't know. I don't know of it. He told me wherever he went. Mm-hmm. For him, everything was work. I mean, see, when you start enjoying work, that is holiday for you. Yeah. Correct? It's only people who don't enjoy work will have to go for holidays. Mm-hmm. But if you love what you're doing, then I think that's it. I don't think he ever went for a holiday.
Sorry, I digressed you there, but going back to, the moments of, those moments where he revealed himself, how did that happen?
See, he was very forthcoming with me. He doesn't hide anything. He doesn't have to. I used to have the freedom to walk into his house, and I wish I could have shown you some lovely photographs. I would walk into his house anytime, and he'd say, Thomas, this is lunchtime. What do we do for lunch? I said, sir, order. So what do you expect from Taj prawns and, what's that? Lobsters on crabs, or, like you say, this five-star hotels which serve the president. When I was in the president's estate looking after the president, the banquets, you have quail eggs and duck eggs and chicken eggs, nothing. Opposite house, there is a dirty pizza place from where we used to buy pizza and French fries. That's it. I would have shown you photographs. French fries. And you'll be surprised to know, even if it's recorded, it doesn't matter. My mother taught my guy over here to make nice Syrian Christian cutlets. Parsis are very fond of meat, and R&D is very fond of cutlets. In fact, I used to pick cutlets from here and take it to. I would have showed you photographs of those cutlets he will eat and enjoy.
Like all good Parsis, he was a foodie.
Yes, foodies. But that is how simple he was. And if you walked into his house, believe me, it was so minimalistic, it's embarrassing for you. Like you walk in, on the left side, you have, bay windows. As I've described on the left side, there is a huge bust of Buddha. So I thought it must be made out of gold plated. So I, very carefully, after washing my hands, just saw if it's gold. Plaster of Paris, 500 rupees se zyada nahi hoga. That's all what there is. And he had a dining table which doubled as a study table. Mm-hmm. So just like our home, when you study, the cook will come and remove the papers, books from there and keep the khana, and you can have your khana. So that's how and in this house there was nothing imported. I didn't see anything imported except for the photograph of The painting of a tiger which he picked up from Paris.
Tigers.
Yes, other than that, I don't
Tigers.
see anything else.
Tell me this. I'll get into the last few questions that I have for you before we just open it up for a quick,
Please,
a quick
any
round.
question, yeah.
But just one quick question. If there's one thing that you want readers of this book to take away, Dr. Mathew, what would that be for you? Personally, because of course you felt very passionately about your acquaintance and friendship with RNT. What do you hope people will take away from this book?
See, if you read the last para of the book, okay. Now let me explain. If it's if I'm going to be convoluted, please ask me. Okay. RNT is a person in whom characters of opposite polarities existed with seamless integration without contradicting each other. Give an example. Fiercely competitive in business, but his empathy can be heart melting. Normally these two things don't go together. So therefore, in that person you saw characters which normally don't exist together. And in the last paragraph of my book, I said, when history unpeels the character of this reticent man, what emerged may be, paradoxically, a person fiercely capitalist trying to satisfy the desires of a socialist heart. So he was passionate about business. He was passionate about profit. He was passionate about profit because he had a duty to fulfill a social obligation. I think that is what is important. Number one, that's what the future generations should understand. You wear a Rolex, you wear Patani, whatever, but please understand, if you can make a man or a family who is in need happy, I think that's the greatest contribution you can make, the way I look at it. And the second point, which I think the takeaway should be, we have a belief that you have to be corrupt to be successful, correct? Somehow that is ingrained in our society. But RNT established it for you that in the sea of corruption, he stood as a single beacon of hope, proving it to you that being honest is the best way to succeed, because his conglomerate beat every other group which did not follow passionate policies of ethical behavior. Very important, because in the march of this nation towards the forefront of the Committee of Nations, nothing other than ethical policies will make growth sustainable. Otherwise it becomes ephemeral. Short-term gains, long-term gains.
Yes.
So these are the two things which RNT's philosophy should be, seen as something which is absolutely unique and which should remain as the ethos of this nation and the future generations for millenniums. That's the way I look at it.
Well said, and no better time than to take that lesson away with our vision, of course, towards a Viksit Bharat. One final question before I open it up to, and this may be a little personal, but how do you feel about all the headlines that have happened since his passing? Especially about his will and everything that we've seen in the media, or maybe how would you think he would feel about it, given his nature, given the way that he was guarded and reticent and very almost fierce about his personal space and his life?
See, to me, I think you would have been quite upset. I'll tell you why. What is a will? A will is a personal decision of a human being. Okay? You can't question a person's will. I'll give you one small example. Sir Ratan Tata died. Okay? in 1918 in St. Ives in England. I asked R&T, I said, sir, can you give me? He said, Thomas, that will be unlegible, but let me think over it since you're writing the book. I said, sir, don't worry. So I went into Manchester Times of 1918, went to England, got that. And you know, in it he writes about Lady Lakshmi Tata. He says, after my death, I would expect Lady Lakshmi Tata to forget the restrictions placed by Parsi religion and to live her life as if I'm still alive. Okay. Every Parsi can criticize it. But it's not for you to criticize. To me, a will is the last testament of the emotional aspects of a person. You don't know why a person has done that. You please let him be. Because he would have done it under various circumstances. Some of the people, he loved his sisters, and the sisters were his ears and eyes. He gave them some part of the money. Somebody else been given money, but he was his only friend right from Jamshedpur. Like, for instance, I pay for my servants' kids' education. But I think that is something very personal for me. So I don't think these controversies should, but you know, press, what they're like. They want headlines. They'll keep asking, oh, why did he give so much? And afterwards they'll say, mere ko bhi thoda mil jata to I would have been happy. So that's what it is,
But okay, before we open it up, any closing remarks, anything that you'd like to add before we take questions?
The only thing, what I'll tell you something, there is nothing much to say except this, that man was absolutely unique and had no equals in the world. That's it. I'm borrowing Henry Kissinger's statement. Honestly. I mean, I honestly feel. And people say that you are, please understand, I've been accused of making this book a hagiography. So I turned out and asked people. I spent 65 to 75 lakhs from my pocket to write this book, in order to parry questions about objectivity. We said, I don't pay my money in order to praise another man. Correct? I did it only to ensure that nobody will throw stones and say, this is a paid job. If anything, R&T has to pay me, he owes me, I don't owe him. Maybe the only guy he owes to, right? So that's the way it is.
And we need an account of his life. We need a total and complete account of his life to learn from. Thank you so much, Dr. Mathew. Pleasure chatting with you. We'll take a couple of questions from the audience.
Any question?
Can we get a mic over there to the gentleman there? Okay, we'll take one and then we'll come to you next.
Hello. A very good evening, Mr. Mathew, and it is indeed very, very engrossing. It's late in the evening, but the session was truly very engrossing.
Thank you.
And the fact that we are talking about an icon, Mr. Ratan Tata, and whatever little we could learn today about his life, I mean, we read so much about him. He was an icon and also enigmatic, because in many of his interviews he spoke about he couldn't get married to someone he was fond of. And you met him in the end of his life, I guess. Did you ever speak to him? Did he ever feel lonely? Did he miss a family? What was your experience about that? Thank you.
He himself has said that he used to feel lonely. He says being alone, not having a family can make you feel lonely. But then he had two of his dogs, Tito and Tango. In fact, they were his children. And he said, anybody would. Let me tell you something. Even if you have family, you will feel lonely. In some cases, because you have a family, you may feel lonely.
So the point is, the answer was very obvious, as you rightly said, that the answer is very obvious. But what troubles me is that what still, is he couldn't help to, have a family or get a family. This is something which is very, very puzzling, because he's a man who had limitless, he has resources, admirers and resource also. I mean, he was an
Are you
icon.
trying to say you need resources to get admirers, so you get admirers because you
No,
have
so,
resources?
so
I don't know what.
So the point I'm trying to understand is what made him so helpless that he couldn't have had a family. Without a family, obviously you are lonely. But what I am concerned is that what stopped him from having a family at any point of his life, you know. I mean, he could have missed.
There's always been such an intense interest in his personal life, and I'll tell you
yeah.
this from a lot of Parsi ladies,
Yeah.
especially my aunts, because for all of them he was Apro Ratan, and why isn't he getting married? Why? It's like those when you go to those weddings and you're constantly asked, why aren't you getting married? He probably faced that too,
And he was pretty handsome, good looking. I mean, I'm still looking at
that's
his
why he was
young
Apro
pictures
Ratan.
also.
He was second only to Prince Charles for the Parsis, by the way. But I'll tell you what.
Prince Charles?
No, you should ask Parsi ladies, Parsi aunties this, but let's not get, we'll take another question.
Parsi aunties may like Prince Charles. Parsis girls like R&T.
Okay, but I think some of this was addressed by you also earlier in the conversation.
No. Let's put it like this. In terms of looks, I don't think, I've written this in my author's note. I meet him in 1994-95, okay? I used to be secretary to the industry minister at the time when License Raj. You wanted to make a pin, you had to come to us. So we used to have all kinds of interests, everybody name. Come and go, come and I never used to bother about anybody. I used to tell my PS, I said, yeah, special, we used to have a special visitor's room. It was a big time internship. Others, if he comes to your room, then you have to talk to him, be polite, chai de do. Then from morning till evening, you'll only be giving tea to industrialists. So R&T, so they said, Mr. Tata has come. He wants to say hello to you. So I said, yeah, you should, let him sit there in the visitor's room. He said he wants to say hello to you before he goes there. So when he walked in, I just looked up. For a second, it was like a Greek god walking in. Okay, 6'2". So I had half a mind not to stand up to shake his hands because you feel small in front of him. 6'2". I still remember blue suit, white shirt, blue tie with white polka dot, amazing crop of hair, and hazel eyes. You know what hazel eyes are? Hazel eyes by definition combine gold, green, and brown. They meld. If you look into, and he says, no, it's extraordinarily important because R&T's father was chosen by Dorabji. According to Parsi custom, when you adopt somebody, it's legal heir, that family's first son is adopted. But the third son, Neville, was adopted because of his hazel eyes. R&T himself said, and he inherited it. Extraordinarily good-looking man, and I know when I interviewed many ladies from Taj, they say, even sir, when we were on holidays, if you knew that R&T was coming to the hotel, they used to cancel the holidays and come and stand at the counter just to see him pass by. And everybody has said, we would almost collapse and knees would crumble in front of him.
That is why everybody was so invested in his personal life.
But can I imagine, if let's presume if your poor aunt would have married him, then he would have lost, then there would have been no other admirers for him, right? So he kept the light burning, I guess.
He did all of us a huge service, absolutely.
But I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what. Now, seriously, if you ask me, I mean, there is no way to prove it. There's no way to establish. I think he was scared of marriage. Otherwise, how do you explain that 4 children of his mother, not even one is married? There has to be something in it, right? Which I was speaking about.
Maybe a little bit of that insecurity.
Secondly, I'll tell you one thing, which I have hinted, which may be attributing to R&T more of a sanguine social intention than what he had in his mind. Is this? He used to always tell me, Thomas, the other groups will break up because sons will fight sisters, sisters will fight brothers, and every industrial house will collapse after maybe 20, 30, 40 years. If it is professionally run and you don't have claimants, then you can run this organization in perpetuity. And that is the reason why finally he chose Cyrus Mistry. He was not related to the Tatas. And most importantly, a Tam Bram. I mean, they all would be very upset. Every Parsi is upset that there's a Tam Bram sitting on top of the Tata conglomerate, because they believe the Tatas is theirs. Every Parsi believes Tata is theirs. And rightly so. And why not? Why not? But he looked at it from a different point of view. He wanted Tata Sons to remain as an oasis for the society, number one. Number two, work towards the trusteeship concept through implementing project through Tata Trust. And I personally believe that he did not want to have a family, because I thought if he had a family, he knew that it can cause dissensions within the group.
I like that point, what you said about the oasis. Let's take one more question. I think that...
I'm still incomplete.
But can we
please.
just first get that question at the back, please?
Sir, for me, Mr. Tata will always be the greatest industrialist that ever was.
The greatest?
Industrialist that ever was. And I'm led
Not
to...
an industry, he's a leader.
Uh,
Lodestar.
many things,
Okay,
many things.
sure.
But he was also an architect. I'm an architect.
That's right.
And I would like to understand that somebody who studied architecture at Cornell, why firstly he took architecture? Because at that time the Bajads and the Walias and all these people, they were sending their kids to business schools. And he went to an architecture school. He did architecture and then he went and did his business studies from Harvard. So why that transition? Because somebody who's going into architecture I'm talking about 60s, somebody who's going into architecture was sure about doing architecture, because from that time, all the people who did architecture from places abroad ended up being great architects in India. Of course, he was also architect of industrial India, but I'm talking about architecture. So what was the thought behind taking up architecture, if you know that? And the second is, why the transition?
See, I've covered this in 2 to 3 chapters in the book. And let me put it very briefly to you. R&T loved buildings. Okay, you have everything cannot be recent. So he used to make small paintings and drawings, sketches of the buildings in Mumbai, and it over to his mother. And his mother used to file them. So after his schooling, he told his father, I want to be an architect. Father, like the old Parsi, said, no, you have to be an accountant like me. Said, go to UK, do an articleship and come back. R&T said no. I mentioned that very clearly. And R&T doesn't fight, but he doesn't relent. And when he fights, he will choose to win. And he will only fight when he can win. Okay? And like economist says, whenever he fights, he wins. All right. Now, he told his father that I want to do architecture. Finally, he went to his grandmother, Lady Navjbai Tata. She says, no. If he wants to do architecture, let him do. And go to the United States. Father said, no, you go to UK. So there was a compromise. There used to be a company called Kaisa Steel from the United States. They were doing the upgradation work of Tata Steel, then Tisco. He says, and his father was very impressed with the engineers from the steel industry. He says, okay, compromise. You go and do mechanical engineering. So he went to Cornell first time and did mechanical engineering for 2 years. After doing, I've said all this, after doing mechanical engineering for 2 years, understanding the American psyche, American concept of freedom of choice, he said, I'm throwing in the gauntlet, I'm shifting to architecture. And R&T has designed 4 houses. In fact, Halakai also was designed by him. And one place in Jamshedpur where Tribidesh Mukherjee, the metallurgist, is staying. And then his father's, and the fourth is in Alibag. So that is something that was a passion. And he's a man who was driven by passion.
Thank you for that. And it was, again, a pleasure. And before we let you go, let me just ask you, given your passion for buildings as well, and his passion, you are a photographer, you take gorgeous pictures of buildings. Did you all ever talk about that?
Yes, in fact,
Any buildings in Mumbai currently that he was very fond of?
in fact, I wanted to show you, if you see, let me take this out and show you this a photograph. There is only one picture.
Let me hold the mic.
Okay, it's okay. All right, yeah, thanks. There's only one picture which occupies one full page. That is of his grandmother. Okay? Now, that is for the simple reason that she was his greatest influencer. He says she is the one who molded his character. His strong attitude towards ethical standards and morality, unwavering commitment to the principle of Tata Group, and the reason why he came back from the US, which he called his second home, in order to unfailingly embrace the concept of Tata philosophy. Okay? So, how did I get this? How did I get this picture? This picture was actually from an original painting of James Shannon, done in 1903 in UK. And this painting is in Chhatrapati Shivaji Museum in Mumbai. So I went back to the bureaucratic connection, told the chief secretary that I want this taken down to take a photograph. So he said, Thomas, how can I do this? I said, मैं नहीं जा रहा हूँ तुम्हारा office से. Finally, he told the culture secretary, yeah, you have to do it for him. So this is brought down, and this photograph is what I've taken.
Absolutely amazing.
I told him, sir, I'm doing this because without her, nobody would have written a book on you, I said. And he was very happy, and I gave him a replica of this. So this is what it is. So this is how we used to sit and discuss. And I've also taken some lovely photographs of this.
Amazing. And I hope you can share those with us, that we can see them. Thank you again. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure chatting with you. Exploring the life of a great man. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for
A must read.
the patience.
Thank you. What
Thank
an
you.
engrossing session that was. A big thank you, Dr. Mathew, for giving us